You little punk! You're just another useless kid!
Judge Harmon's gavel slammed down, the sound ricocheting off the wooden panels, swallowing every breath in the courtroom. 11 a.m. at the federal courthouse. Devon Taylor, 17 years old, an outstanding science student, carried a small metal box containing his homemade air quality monitor on his way to room 302 to present before the environmental committee. The courtroom fell silent. Devon Taylor stood tall, his shoulders tense as if trying to bear every stare pressing down on him. From the high bench, Judge Harmon leaned forward, voice cold as steel. "I know your kind. No discipline, no father to raise you." He tilted his head, a sneer forming at the corner of his mouth. "Where's your father, boy?" Devon didn't blink. "Your Honor, may I call him?" "Be my guest." Harmon smirked. "If he even bothers to answer." Devon pulled out his phone, his hand steady. "Dad, the judge says you failed raising me," he said, every word deliberate. "He wants to know where you are. Can you come to courtroom 4B right now?" No one in that room realized. That call wasn't defiance. It was a declaration. The first voice of a young black man refusing to be defined by prejudice. That morning, Devon had entered the courthouse carrying his science project. A handmade air quality sensor. The security gate beeped. Officer Briggs stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "What's this thing supposed to be?" "An air quality monitor, sir. For my presentation before the environmental committee." Briggs flipped the device over, tone sharp. "Looks suspicious to me." Devon kept his calm. "I have documentation, sir." "Hands where I can see them. Don't move," Briggs barked. Heads turned. Devon stood still, heart pounding. 3 officers closed in, and from down the hallway, Judge Harmon appeared, arms crossed, watching silently like a man deciding someone's fate. "Shouldn't you be in school?" "I was excused to present today, Your Honor." "Present here?" Harmon chuckled. "The environmental committee. In my courthouse?" "Yes, sir. Room 302, 11 o'clock. Dr. Williams invited me." Harmon glanced at his watch. "Let's see if that's true. Bring him into my courtroom first." As he was escorted away, Devon caught sight of a white student carrying a science display through the same security gate, unchecked. He texted his father. "Being held for inspection. Might be late to the presentation." The reply came instantly. "What's going on, son?" Devon hesitated, then erased it. "Just extra screening, Dad. It's fine." Inside an empty courtroom, Harmon sat on the bench. "Explain again what this contraption does." "It measures fine particle pollution in low-income neighborhoods, sir. I collected data showing air quality is 3 times worse in predominantly black areas." "In your neighborhood?" Harmon cut in. "Sounds more like an accusation. Then science." He shoved the papers aside. "This device could interfere with courthouse systems. It'll be held for inspection." His palm struck the table. A small sensor cracked and fell to the floor. Devon watched 6 months of work shatter. "Your Honor, that's real research." "Sure, research," Harmon scoffed. "Part you, part whoever did the real work. I've heard it all before." As he was thrown out, Devon understood. What was being doubted wasn't the device, but the color of the hands that built it. In the hallway, time crawled, punishingly slow. Room 302's door stayed shut. The guard blocked the way. Dr. Williams, silver hair, round glasses, rushed over. "Devon, why aren't you inside? We're about to start." "Judge Harmon detained my project, said it looked suspicious." "Ridiculous. You're today's keynote student speaker." They hurried back to the courtroom. Harmon was on the phone, gesturing for them to wait. When he saw Williams, his posture shifted, straighter, voice commanding. "Judge Harmon, there's been a mistake. Devon Taylor was invited to present." "He brought unauthorized electronics into the courthouse," Harmon said coolly. "It's a science project. I personally reviewed it." "Did you run a background check on him and his family? Do you know where he's from?" Williams froze. "He's an exceptional student." "That's not an answer." "Where's he from?" Devon replied quietly. Chicago, sir. Harmon's lip curled. That's all I need to know. The device stays. He can attend without it. Williams protested. But his entire presentation— Then let it be a lesson. Next time, come prepared. May I at least retrieve my slides? The laptop's being held too. As they turned to leave, Harmon dropped one final blade of a sentence. Next time, know your place before you step into this courthouse. Devon stood before 12 members of the committee, empty-handed, heart heavy. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, voice trembling but firm. My equipment has been confiscated, but I'll do my best to present from memory. The room went silent. Devon picked up a pen and sketched the measurement setup, describing the dust sampling process, analyzing the data, and explaining the link between pollution and respiratory illness in poor neighborhoods. With every sentence, every stroke of his pen, the room seemed to light up. The committee members leaned forward, listening. The law protects the air, but not everyone breathes equally, Devon concluded. Applause broke out. Amazing, Chairman Lawson said. You deserve to present at the state conference. We will investigate the confiscation of your device. Devon nodded, eyes wet. After the meeting, he found a quiet corner of the restroom and slid down against the wall. The tension cracked into heavy breaths. He called his father, straight to voicemail. Dad, something happened at the courthouse. They confiscated my project, but I'm okay. I just need your advice. Outside, Dr. Williams waited for him, smiling kindly. You did something extraordinary, Devon. You stood your ground under that pressure. Thank you, sir. But can we get the device back today? We'll see. They returned to the courtroom. Harmon was presiding over another case. Devon watched. The white man questioned gently. The Latina woman repeatedly interrupted. When the courtroom cleared, Harmon looked back. Still here, Taylor? Your Honor, I finished my presentation. May I have my device returned? Not possible. It's under security review. Williams stepped forward. Judge Harmon, with all due respect, this young man— Your Honor, Dr. Williams said, holding himself, that device contains irreplaceable research data. Please allow Devon to retrieve it. Harmon did not look up. He should have thought of that before bringing unauthorized electronics into a federal courthouse. Devon met his gaze. Your Honor, when can I get it back? When I deem it safe. Could be days, could be weeks. Devon gave a small, composed nod. Thank you, Your Honor. He turned and walked away, each step slow, but a vow formed inside him. He would not let justice be twisted in the name of power. Outside, Devon called another number. Uncle James, I need legal advice about confiscated property in federal court. A deep voice answered on the line. Calmly tell me every detail, Devon. We'll do this by the book. The next morning at school, Devon couldn't focus. After class, Ms. Reynolds, the physics teacher, called him over. Dr. Williams told me what happened. I can hardly believe it. Devon summarized everything, steady, withholding emotion. Her face darkened. That judge has no right to hold your property without an official order. Have you called your father? I called, but he's at a conference in D.C. Don't give up. The organizers are still holding your slot for the science fair next week. Devon nodded. I'll have to start over. At noon, his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number read, Your project will be destroyed tomorrow morning. Security procedure. Sorry. A friend at the courthouse. Devon felt his heart stop. All the air quality data, the numbers proving environmental injustice, were about to disappear. He called his father, straight to voicemail. That afternoon, Devon returned to the courthouse. A new guard blocked him. The judge has returned. Come back tomorrow. That can't be. They're going to destroy my device. That's beyond my authority. Devon spotted Officer Briggs down the hall. Mr. Briggs, I just need to retrieve the storage drive. It'll take a minute. The judge's order is to hold it. You learned your lesson, right? What lesson? That my work should be destroyed because of my skin color? Briggs turned away. Voice cold. Move along, kid. Devon gripped his phone. Uncle James, they'll destroy it tomorrow. The uncle's voice answered. Document everything. Names, times, words. I'll handle it. That night in the garage, Devon soldered wires and assembled circuit boards. His mother stood in the doorway, anxious. Devon, maybe you should let it go. It's not worth it. He didn't look up. It is worth it, Mom. This isn't just a project. What is it then? Evidence. When Judge Harmon seized my device, he didn't just take my things. He took the voice of the whole neighborhood that's been breathing toxic air from the plant near his courthouse. She froze. Do you think he did it on purpose? I'm not sure, but I'll find out. Early the next morning, Devon stood on the courthouse steps, holding the stack of documents Uncle James had prepared overnight. Proof of ownership, grant paperwork, and notarized copies. When Harmon stepped out of his car, he paused. Taylor, still here? Yes, Your Honor. I have all the paperwork proving the project's legitimacy and a request for its return. Give them to my clerk. I'm busy. Your Honor, my device is scheduled for destruction this morning. That's not my problem. Devon stepped closer, keeping his tone polite. Your Honor, I have recorded the entire process. If property is destroyed unlawfully, I will be forced to appeal according to proper procedure. Harmon halted, eyes ice cold. Are you threatening the court? No, Your Honor. I am exercising my civic right. Harmon leaned in, his breath heavy with the smell of authority. Listen carefully, kid. Here, I decide, not you. With all due respect, this court belongs to the people, sir. Harmon's face flushed. Briggs! Present, Your Honor. This kid is causing trouble. Throw him out. Devon held up his stack of papers. These are notarized legal copies. Fake documents, Harmon growled. Seize them. Briggs hesitated. Your Honor. I said seize them. Devon tightened his grip on the papers, voice steady. You think these papers will save you? Harmon bellowed. No, Your Honor, but justice will. At that moment, a clerk ran up. Judge Harmon, there's an urgent call for you. Harmon snarled. This isn't finished. Then he left. Devon looked at Briggs. I just want my device back before it's destroyed. Briggs lowered his head. Go on, kid. He won't stop. I've got 3 years left till retirement. Is 3 years of retirement worth destroying evidence of environmental injustice? Briggs said nothing and turned away. By afternoon, Devon sat on a bench outside the courtroom, waiting. A female lawyer passed by, eyes sharp. You been here all day? Yes, to reclaim property unlawfully held. I'm Laura Chen, a public defender. Let me see the paperwork. She scanned them quickly and nodded. Harmon, I've heard a lot about him. Let me make a call. A few minutes later, she returned. Bad news. The project has been transferred to the evidence processing unit. If we move fast, we might stop it. They raced to the basement. Security guards blocked the door. No one's allowed in. You are destroying a citizen's property without a court order, Laura argued. I'm just following orders. Through the glass, Devon saw the familiar box, his device, taken apart. Please, that's environmental research. Don't do this. Back up, or I'll call security. Laura pulled him back. We need an emergency injunction. I'll file it right now. They turned to leave, just as the elevator doors slid open. Judge Harmon stepped out, smirking. Miss Chen, defending troublemakers again? Your Honor, Laura said calmly. We're filing an emergency motion to halt the destruction order. No need. I personally deem that device dangerous. On what grounds, sir? On the grounds that this is my courtroom, Harmon gestured. Escort them out. Taylor is barred from entering this building. Devon took a step forward. Your Honor, I've complied with every rule. Why? Because I can, Harmon said slowly. Some people need to learn their place. Laura gripped Devon's arm. Don't fight him. We'll find another way. As the door closed, Devon saw Harmon raise the gavel and bring it down. He just smashed it himself, Devon whispered. Laura clenched her jaw. Then it's personal now. Time to go higher. Outside the courthouse, Laura made call after call, but no one dared intervene. No judge wants to go up against Harmon, she sighed. Devon paced the sidewalk. His phone rang. His father. Dad, they're destroying my project right now. A deep, controlled voice replied. I know. I've been informed. Put me on speaker. Laura glanced at Devon in surprise. This is Robert Taylor, the voice said clearly. And who am I speaking to? Public Defender Laura Chen, sir. Your son's property was seized and destroyed illegally by Judge Harmon. I understand. Ms. Chen, take my son back in there. If anyone stops you, tell them to call this number. He read out a string of digits. Clearly an internal Justice Department number. Laura's eyes widened. Are you sure? Do it. I'll handle the rest. They returned to the main entrance. Taylor is banned from entry, the guard declared. Laura kept her composure. If you refuse, call this number. The guard frowned, dialed, and his face changed instantly. Yes, sir. Understood. He straightened. You may proceed. Devon turned to Laura. What just happened? Your father. What exactly does he do in D.C.? He works for the Department of Justice, but I don't even know his exact title. They entered Harmon's office. The clerk tried to block them, but Laura held up the number. A minute later, the door opened. Judge Harmon stood behind his desk, face taut. On the table lay Devon's device, dented at one corner, the gavel beside it. This is harassment, Harmon said stiffly. My decision is final. Laura remained calm. Your Honor, we were instructed to call this number should you refuse to return the property. Harmon laughed. Some low-level official doesn't concern me. Devon stepped forward, voice soft but steady. Maybe you should make that call yourself, sir. A long silence. Harmon looked at the boy, then at the phone in Laura's hand. He snatched it, reluctantly dialed. This is Judge William Harmon. Who am I speaking with? His expression shifted from irritation to shock. Yes, I understand, but the device... He stopped. Yes, sir. The color drained from his face. Hand trembling, Harmon returned the phone to Laura and swallowed hard. Your property will be returned immediately, Taylor. Intact, with all data, Devon said clearly. Harmon nodded, unable to meet his eyes. Out in the hallway, Devon's phone rang. It's done? His father's calm voice asked. Yes, sir, thank you. Good. Now put Judge Harmon on. Devon turned back and handed the phone over. Harmon's face was pale. This is Harmon. The voice on the other end cut like a blade. Judge Harmon, this is Robert Taylor, the Attorney General of the United States. At 9 a.m. tomorrow, I'll be at your courthouse to discuss your treatment of my son and the systemic misconduct in your courtroom. Clear your schedule. Harmon staggered, nearly dropping the phone. Yes, Mr. Attorney General, I'll make arrangements. Laura let out a low whistle. Your dad is the Attorney General. Devon nodded faintly. He was appointed last year. We keep it quiet at school. She glanced at the return device, a few components bent and dented. This thing really just measures air quality? Yes, 6 months of data, and the highest pollution zones align exactly with the districts where Judge Harmon issued the harshest sentences. Laura's eyes widened. You accidentally uncovered a map of environmental racism and linked it to judicial bias. The next morning, dawn broke over a courthouse swarmed with TV vans. News of the Attorney General's surprise visit spread like wildfire. Inside, Harmon paced, phone pressed to his ear. Senator, you promised to protect me. Yes, I always ruled in favor of your developments, but... He slammed the receiver down just as his clerk entered. Sir, the FBI is waiting downstairs. FBI? Harmon inhaled sharply, straightened his robe, trying to salvage a trace of dignity. Devon and his father entered through a private hall. Robert Taylor, tall, composed, eyes warm yet unyielding. You all right? He asked, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. Better now, Dad. I didn't want it to go this far. You stood with respect and reason. I'm proud of you. But this isn't just about one device anymore. In the conference room, Laura and the Justice Department aides were already assembled. On the wall hung large city maps, with districts shaded in various colors. "Miss Chen's been an incredible help," one aide said. "We've mapped out Judge Harmon's sentencing bias. It aligns perfectly with the pollution data from Devon's project." Robert frowned at the map. "And it overlaps with Senator Whitfield's investment zones." Another aide nodded. "His shell companies have been buying up properties in neighborhoods where environmental regulations were deliberately unenforced." Devon ran his hand over the metal device. "That's why Judge Harmon tried to destroy the data. It connects 3 dots: pollution, sentencing, and profit." Robert looked at his son. Warmth beneath stern composure. "You pulled the thread that brought the whole curtain down." The door opened. Harmon entered with his private attorney, his face tight and artificial. "Attorney General Taylor, this spectacle is unnecessary. A simple misunderstanding about a student project." Robert did not shake his hand. "This meeting isn't about a project, Judge. It's about a pattern." He gestured for him to sit. For an hour, the investigative team laid everything out. Charts showing a 40% harsher sentencing rate for defendants from minority neighborhoods. Call logs between the judge's chambers and the senator's office before key environmental rulings, and a pattern of environmental lawsuits systematically dismissed. Harmon's lawyer objected repeatedly, and each time another document slammed onto the table. "This is a political witch hunt," Harmon shouted. "I've served for 20 years. "Yes," Robert said evenly. "And we've reviewed all 20. How do you explain the 40% sentencing gap along racial and neighborhood lines?" Harmon's color drained. I invoke judicial immunity." His lawyer quickly stood. "My client will make no further statement." Robert nodded and signaled to his aide, who slid a document across the table. "Official notice of investigation. You are hereby suspended pending emergency review by the Judicial Ethics Committee." You can't." "We didn't do this, Judge," Robert replied, standing. "Your actions did. Prepare for the hearing this afternoon." That evening, the news spread everywhere. "Judge Harmon suspended pending investigation," the anchor read, "following allegations that he unlawfully seized and destroyed scientific evidence gathered by a high school student." At home, Devon's mother turned to her husband. "How big will this get?" "Very big," Robert said. Whitfield bought up neighborhoods after letting pollution violations slide, then cleaned select zones to resell for profit. The judiciary was bent to clear the path. "Why target our son's project?" "Because data doesn't lie," Devon said quietly, a faint, sad smile on his lips. "My dust map overlapped perfectly with his sentencing map." Robert's phone rang. He listened, then exhaled. "Whitfield's calling for a counter-investigation, claims it's politically motivated." "Is it?" Devon asked. "Justice isn't politics, son," Robert said. "But those who fear justice often hide behind it." The next morning, Devon stood once again before the Environmental Committee. This time, his device fully operational, the FBI discreetly lining the back of the room. "These are 6 months of measurements taken to EPA standards," he said, pointing to the screen. "Multi-point sampling, cross-referenced with hospital respiratory admissions. Violations were reported equally across districts, but enforcement was concentrated in affluent areas." Chairman Lawson nodded gravely. "This data will form the basis of a federal investigation. We'd like to fund your system citywide." As they stepped outside, Laura approached. "Harmon's lawyer wants to negotiate." Robert raised an eyebrow. "That was fast." 3 other judges just filed for temporary leave," Laura whispered. "Whitfield's corporate stock dropped 30% this morning." Devon froze. A school project turned domino chain reaction. "What happens now, Dad?" "Justice," Robert said simply. "And maybe cleaner air for your neighborhood." A week later, the Judicial Ethics Committee chamber was packed. Harmon sat on the review bench, stripped of his robe, looking smaller than ever. Whitfield stood at the back of the room, pale and restless, then slipped out a side door when Robert and Devon entered. The evidence poured down like rain. Devon's project, verified by 3 university environmental departments, proved selective enforcement of environmental law. Sentencing records showed environmental cases from minority neighborhoods were dismissed 8 times more often than others. Call logs, bank transfers, and ruling dates aligned precisely with investment profits. How can a student's work be admissible? Harmon's lawyer protested. The committee chair replied, "Science testifies for itself. The methodology has been independently verified." At last, Harmon took the stand. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a desperate practicality. "I acknowledge there were statistical disparities," he said haltingly, "but there was no intent." Questions came like gunfire. Identical cases, wildly different sentences. The only difference being the defendant's ZIP code. "And what about your calls with Senator Whitfield's office, made right before you dismissed key environmental cases?" Harmon froze too long. "He's an old friend. We discussed various matters, including modifying certain records to accommodate his development projects." His attorney jumped up. "My client wishes to amend his testimony." The room stirred. Everyone knew what that meant. Harmon leaned forward. "I'm willing to provide full information about Senator Whitfield in exchange for leniency." The committee chair turned to Robert. The Attorney General gave a small nod. "Recess. Judge Harmon will cooperate privately with Justice Department investigators." Outside, reporters swarmed. Robert spoke briefly. "Today marks an important step for environmental justice. Selective enforcement means deciding which children breathe clean air and which do not. And that is unacceptable in America." Devon caught a glimpse of Harmon passing through the hallway, shoulders slumped. Their eyes met for a second. And it was Harmon who looked away first. That night, the news exploded. Whitfield announced his resignation for health reasons. 3 development firms held emergency meetings. The EPA launched new probes in 12 cities showing similar patterns. Robert came home, loosening his tie, exhausted, but his eyes still bright. "Harmon's given names, dates, and dollar amounts. The network's larger than we thought." In the garage, Devon replaced sensors on the repaired device. His mother stood beside him silently. "I never meant for it to get this big," he said, tightening a screw. "But you don't regret it," she smiled. "No, because data doesn't lie. It only asks, who gets to breathe freely?" Robert stood in the doorway, his voice warm but firm. "Tomorrow we're installing 10 more stations. The department will cover the legal side, and the universities will handle the tech. You lead with science, son. Let the law do the rest." Devon looked up, eyes shining. Outside, the late afternoon sky seemed newly washed clean. A boy once told he had no future, gripped his wrench and listened, to his own breath and to his neighborhood's. The drums of justice had begun to sound, and the air, at last, began to change. "Will it really make a difference, Dad?" Devon asked, gazing toward the rooftops blurred in morning mist. Robert nodded. "The EPA is fast-tracking cleanup in the affected districts. Your monitoring system's been adopted as a national model for community oversight." Devon was quiet, then smiled softly. "From a school project to federal policy." Robert replied gently, "That's how change always starts. One person stands firm and others follow." 3 months later in Washington, D.C., Devon Taylor, now a national symbol of environmental justice, stood at the podium of the National Conference on Environmental Justice. Beside him gleamed the upgraded version of his air quality device, catching the stage lights. "Environmental justice isn't abstract," Devon said, voice steady and resonant. "It's about who gets to breathe clean air, who has safe water, and whose children play on poisoned soil." In the front row sat Attorney General Robert Taylor and Attorney Laura Chen, now co-chairing the Department of Justice's Environmental Justice Task Force. Behind Devon, the screen displayed 2 maps. A year ago, these red zones exceeded federal fine particle limits by over 300%. Today, thanks to fair enforcement, levels have dropped by more than 70%. The audience erupted in applause. The EPA representative stepped forward. "The Taylor report has transformed our perspective," We're implementing similar programs in 30 cities nationwide. A Justice Department spokesperson added, following Senator Whitfield's indictment, we've expanded the investigation to 12 other states. Judge Harmon's testimony has been pivotal. Devon listened, still hardly believing it. A student project, now the catalyst for national reform. Someone asked, what about judicial reform? The Ethics Committee chair replied, all future environmental rulings will now require detailed written justifications and statistical audits to detect bias. After the conference, father and son walked together along the National Mall. Whitfield's company, Robert said, has been ordered to fund environmental restoration and open respiratory clinics in every neglected district. Devon watched children playing in a newly restored park. Will it last? He asked. That depends on people like you, Robert answered. Systems only change when someone dares to question them. Devon's phone buzzed. A notification. A full scholarship offer in environmental law and policy. They want me to expand the monitoring network statewide. Robert smiled. Not bad for a kid once called a useless black boy. Devon laughed quietly. I just wanted my neighborhood to breathe easier. I never thought it would go this far. Change always begins there, Robert said, with someone who refuses to know their place. Another alert came in. 3 more judges suspended in other states. It's spreading, Devon murmured. Robert nodded. It's not isolated, it's systemic. And sometimes, all it takes is one crack to expose the whole foundation. He pointed toward the distant Department of Justice building. Next week, we'll announce the National Environmental Justice Initiative, modeled after your system. 1 year later. Devon returned to his old neighborhood. Rows of young trees lined the streets, and air monitoring devices, now mass-produced, stood at every corner, transmitting real-time data through a public app. Outside the federal courthouse, the place where it had all begun, a bronze plaque gleamed. Environmental Justice Oversight Council, established following the Harmon-Whitfield case. Passing through the gate, the security officer greeted him with a smile. No trace of suspicion. Inside the lobby, a community exhibit displayed air quality data and photos of student science projects. Attorney Laura Chen stopped beside the original device, now enclosed in glass beneath a small plaque reading, From Student Project to National Reform. The exhibit will travel to Chicago next month, she said. How's the judicial reform going? Devon asked. 17 judges under review, 5 have already resigned. As for Harmon, Laura smiled faintly. Community service in the same neighborhoods he once harmed. They entered a conference room where Robert was waiting with community leaders. On the wall, a new map showed marked improvements in environmental compliance. Child asthma admissions are down 32%, a public health official reported. Adult respiratory issues show a similar drop. Robert embraced his son. Your monitoring system has become the national standard. Devon shook his head gently. The technology doesn't matter. What matters is the question. Who deserves the protection of the law? A woman stood up, her voice trembling. We've lived with pollution our whole lives. Everyone knew the air was toxic, but without data, no one listened. Robert nodded. Justice needs evidence, but it also needs people who refuse to bow. As evening fell, father and son walked through a park that had once been an illegal dump, now lush and green. Whitfield's sentencing is tomorrow, Robert said. His company's been ordered to fund environmental restoration for the next 20 years. Devon watched a group of students installing new sensors. They're continuing it, expanding the network. Robert smiled. Real change is when it outlives the one who started it. They stopped before the old school. A banner hung across the gate. Devon Taylor Environmental Science Academy, where justice breathes. Inside, students gathered around analysis stations, reporting live data to the community. Robert spoke softly. Do you know what Harmon said during his community service? He admitted he'd never believed one young person could change an entire system. Devon smiled. Not just me. everyone who stood up after the first domino fell. The sunset painted gold across the once-forgotten neighborhood. Devon looked around. Every street, every breath. Proof that justice only matters when it protects everyone equally. Robert nodded quietly. That's the lesson. Justice doesn't come on its own. It needs proof, persistence, and the courage to stand against power when it's abused. Devon smiled, closing the journey. And the place, where a person belongs, is anywhere they choose to stand. Finally, Devon stood in the middle of the neighborhood once buried under smog, now filled with trees and children's laughter. His air monitor, once dismissed as a suspicious device, had become a symbol of justice and truth. He understood. Change doesn't start with authority. It begins with the courage of one person who dares to say no to injustice. Harmon lost his seat. Whitfield faced prosecution, and the forgotten neighborhoods finally breathed cleaner air because of a school project and a boy who refused to bow. Because justice isn't something granted. It's something reclaimed. Reclaimed through knowledge, persistence, and the belief that everyone deserves the right to breathe fair air. If you believe change begins with one person brave enough to stand up, hit like to help this story reach further. Subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next journeys of courage and justice. And share this video, because sometimes, when a single story is told, the whole world changes.